That's fantastic. We'll ask young Charles to drag some of the chairs up and kick young Ed off as we do another Q&A session. And isn't it a shame the politician wasn't here for that one? No, for those sessions. And I think, I don't know if we can access all these slideshows, but you know, that's when you go to meet with a politician, Mr. DeMarco, that's the kind of stuff you take with you. You just say, this is the world, it's changed. 4,000 gig per car per day. It really knocks out the copper network, doesn't it? Maybe they'll call it fibre to the driveway. And it's great to see AGL. 100 and how many years? 180 years. Now, I've just got to ask one question. Can you get the robots to keep the cars to the left when they get to the overtaking lanes? Then we would be the unconcerned. I'm going to leave one microphone. Oh, James has got it. Well done. Who's got question one? And these, please, are questions, not positions, statements, or policy. Up the back there. Doctor?
Yeah, quick question for Gelco there. Those energy densities that you were showing, I mean, a little pernickety point, what hours per kilogram? What hours per kilogram?
The hours are irrelevant, basically, because we're talking the watts. So that would be at the C20 rate, those values, yeah. But even at the C1 or C5, there wouldn't be too much of a difference.
But was that at the pack level or at the cell level?
At the cell level.
Okay, I think you might need to update the figures. They're markedly better than some of those numbers.
Okay, yeah, I'll take on board. Cheers.
Did anybody else understand that like I did?
I was wondering if there are any concerns around the supply of things like lithium and cobalt for this massive revolution of electric vehicles that we're looking at having?
Yeah, look, it's a topic which is often discussed, sort of thing. The price of lithium is going down, so I would think not. Yeah, the shares in the companies are going up, of course, but as you saw on the chart, the price of lithium is decreasing. So I would think that would not be a major driver.
And cobalt?
Cobalt's again the same, it's just a bit more expensive, that's all. Yeah, you're getting a bit more capacity, but it's a bit dearer to buy, and it's not as stable and reliable.
Got one at the back here again. A real question.
Yeah, question. What's your autonomous cyber protections? I mean, the first thing is, if the network goes down, do all the cars just stop? They won't find their own way around. The other one is hacking by, what we've seen, terrorists grabbing cars, or even my 15-year-old comes home and he's got the thing hacked and it's doing 100 kilometres an hour instead of 50 on the way home. Software.
So I'm not sure about your son whether he's hacking it by just putting his foot hard on it.
No, there's no control.
Yeah. To be honest, the problem's hardest at the outset because you've got obviously a system that's not designed for autonomous vehicles that the vehicles have to function. So they're going to have to solve the problem up front, and the way they do that is obviously with some of these conditional automation scenarios, and then separately. The world has to learn to coexist, if you like. So the robots themselves have to coexist with us. It's not the other way around. But interestingly enough, they've legislated in Singapore to make it illegal to deliberately step in front of an autonomous vehicle because the car will stop, it will stop, and therefore if you're a teenage boy and you're lacking other things to do, then you're going to do that to impress your friends, unless you're going to get a $1,500 fine for your troubles, and that's what happens in Singapore. So there's a lot of little things like that which are basically edges, and that's what some of the work that's been done. Technically though, the default is that the vehicle obviously will make the right decision in a utilitarian sense. So that means it will take into account the range of scenarios, and it will optimise dynamically around, well, I'm not going to kill a school bus full of kids, I will kill my occupant because that's the best utilitarian principle outcome. Society lives on those utilitarian principles at the moment. So there are guidelines around these things that have been developed by the legislators. We all live within society around these guidelines effectively. It's just that they're very clear in the context of autonomous vehicles.
So the car will have AI inside it?
The car, yes, it will, because AI is part of how you solve the problem about how you learn for an environment. Because in fact, there's a lot of things that can happen that are unexpected. So there's a classic case study of an autonomous vehicle being confounded in an intersection by a cyclist, because the cyclist was doing what's called a wheel stand, where they basically just stand on their pedals and they're stationary. So from the car's perspective, it's like, what the hell's going on here? That cyclist looks like they're moving, but they're not moving. What am I supposed to do? Its default position, it just stops. So what happens in that scenario is that the real drivers tend to run into the back of the autonomous vehicles, and that's been the most common collision scenario today. So the AI helps the car learn about the operating environment, and then it adapts to become more like a human driver and less like a machine, and which is more perfect, if you like.
And do the various vehicles talk to each other, so once one car learns it, all the other cars learn it?
Yeah, I think there's a shared intelligence component across it. Yep. The learning algorithms would share. Yep.
What a conversation. Dad, can I borrow the car? No, someone's got it.
I can say something briefly that one too. So there's two major thrusts for the development with autonomous. There's introverted cars and extroverted cars. So introverted cars are basically figuring everything out themselves. So you look at the existing Teslas and things like that, they don't rely on any communications with anything else. But if you want to do this like large scale and get the full benefits of not being able to drive at all, you basically need to have the stuff talking to each other. So to your original question about what happens if the comms network goes down, if it goes down, the cars revert back to being introverted only, where they can still be quiet, special, you know, extremely good performance, but just not as good as it would be if they could talk to each other.
Also, I did hear about when Tesla first came to Australia, and the autopilot cameras recognised a kangaroo, and they thought it was a large dog. But then once it was trained on that, all Teslas around the world knew if they saw a kangaroo, if it was in France, they'd know that was a kangaroo. Even if that car hadn't actually seen one.
This one's for Phil. A couple of years ago, we heard about lithium phosphorus and lithium air batteries. Lithium phosphorus was supposed to be a little bit safer and have a slightly better capacity. In lithium air, I think there were some charging issues, but there were some trials in the UK. Can you tell us a little bit about where that's gone, or hasn't it gone anywhere?
Yeah, effectively it hasn't gone anywhere just because of, I think the volumes that they're talking about just can't handle the capacity, and price and that sort of thing is just not there. You know, we're dealing with a price-conscious market, and those ones just are not within that range, effectively.
I know with interested in now 9 lithium mines in Australia, not 1. I've just got one up here. So, do you want to go first? No, we'll let the IT man go first. There you go.
A question for Kristian. The cars, I presume they know where they are by the GPS network, is that correct? I was under the impression, but I may be wrong, that the GPS satellite system was put up by the US military, and the US military can, at a whim, turn it off. What happens to the cars? It reminds me of one of the Star Wars movies where the mothership was taken out and all the robots just stopped.
I think I can't talk about the power of the US military, but I don't vouch for the credentials of the bloke in charge at the moment. So who knows what might happen there? But regardless, I think come back to James's point that there's redundancy built into the system that means that, you know, in the event of, you know, sensor failures or communications network breakdowns, that the default is still, you know, catered for. They have radio mode effects analysis work, which is an engineering methodology to be able to game out different scenarios and figure out, well, how we catered for that. So yes, total world apocalypse, US military removing the GPS, yep, that's probably been gamed out. Yep.
Well, for that exact one, that's the exact reason the Europeans are building the Galileo sat-nav system, so that if the Yanks do turn theirs off, you've still got another one.
Far out. I hope it all happens in my lifetime. We've gone from black and white stolen Holden Kingswoods to artificial intelligence in cars.
Just an anecdotal reply to Paul. I think I've heard that the US military have bought so much off-the-shelf consumer GPS products that they can no longer afford to use that system where they degrade the signal because they got so much of the cheap consumer stuff. My question is to Kristian. Your $1 a day all you can eat charging of your electric vehicle is very attractive for the car owner and an absolute nightmare for the network operator. That's an interesting dilemma. I mean, how do you solve that in terms of, I presume you don't imagine that will be the future, but it's a great marketing thing for now. How do you transition from that to something which is much more network friendly?
Yeah, so I think you've almost answered your own question. What the impact will be on the grid if all vehicles are allowed to charge basically just on convenience, on demand, sorry, and we're looking to partner with some of the network operators to trial out some different technology solutions. We certainly have got technology capability that will allow us to do what's called orchestration, and that is try and shift loads, and it's not just EV charging that we're looking at in that context. And then maybe just to speak to the $1 a day proposition like you touched on, we conceive that because the vast majority of our customers, we've got roughly 3.6 million customers, the vast majority of them don't know anything about electric cars. So we had to come out with a product which basically spoke to the majority of the customers, which means that we had to speak to a value proposition that is, I don't know anything about electric cars, but I do know $1 a day to run my own car, so would you tell me more? And so that was the goal, and that's a little bit like what our elected representative spoke about this morning, that is, we're in a minority here, and we have to try and communicate to the majority who don't know anything about what we're talking about, so we have to stand in their shoes and try and figure out how to communicate that. Now, that's why we started with that.
Well, that's a winner. I'll go with Penny because she's been nice to me over the last 6 months.
Oh. Thank you all for a terrific presentation. My question is to Kristian. In the slide you had of the map of Australia, you had the icons for what was happening in various places. There was 3 on Tasmania. What were they about?
The map is from Austroads, which is one of the national bodies that's about trying to cooperate across the road regulators in Australia, so big roads, and I'm not sure what the Tasmanian agency is, at TMR or something like that, to Transport Main Roads or something like that. Anyway, that's where in Queensland. They cooperate on these issues where you've got to have cars that obviously come across on the ferry, like many people here, and be able to interact with the road infrastructure. Austroads have an inventory of projects that are about cooperative intelligent transport systems and other things that are in that area of autonomous vehicles, and so some of those projects, they'll be listed on the Austroads website. All of my slides have got links to the underlying information, so if you really want to know, have a look on the Austroads website via the link that's on that slide when it's made available.
Penny, I think one of those was agricultural automation.
Good. Clever tractors.
Yeah, field.
Thank you.
There was another question from the young lady.
I'm a bit shy about this one. I know you said you were getting out of coal, but is the electricity in your system clean and free?
Some of it, yeah, some of it. We still own 2 of the largest coal-fired generators in the country, and they, to some extent, are paying for my presence here and in general, so I can't be too dismissive of that. It's very much a part of the reality of our energy system that we're in transition. We have to move away from the coal-fired generation, which has formed the basis of our generation for some time now, towards a decarbonised future, and it's happening gradually. It's not an overnight transition. Obviously, we've been on the front pages of the newspapers over the last couple of months, and not for all the reasons that we'd like. So some of that transition is unfolding now, but certainly we're also the largest listed owner and operator of renewable generation in Australia. So we've got a mixed portfolio. We own hydro, solar farms, as well as obviously the coal-fired generation.
I'd go nuclear, but that's just me. That was a good question. Well done. And we talked about transitioning overnight. Those on Antarctica transitioned overnight because their wind turbine came down, so they've gone straight to diesel. One last question. Oh, Steve, we haven't asked you. Come on. You're not going to ask about your competitor, right?
No, it's a question for James. 350 kilowatts, and you're talking about, say, I don't know, 8 or 10 bays of charging. That's a hell of a lot of power. Over 3 megawatts. Is there anything that can be done to ameliorate that that peak demand, like stationary storage or
Yeah,
other
so
load sharing techniques?
well, you can't load shed because the only reason people stopped at the high power charger is because they want to charge right now. So you can't turn it down or defer it. There's a short-term solution and a long-term solution to this. The short-term solution is if you're worried about demand charges and peak loading and all that sort of thing, you pretty much have to have stationary storage on site. The long-term solution is when there is a large number of cars using that station and it has a high average utilisation, you no longer care about the difference between the average and the peak, because yes, you've got a 3 megawatt transformer that will consistently selling 2.5 megawatts of power to it. You no longer care about the demand factor on that side. So that problem solves itself as you get a whole stack of 350 kilowatt capable cars, but who knows how far away that is. So there needs to be some kind of solution in the meantime.
Question?
Quick question for James. What's involved with getting Trinity to install a charger in Tasmania? Well, who pays for it generally?
Well, part of the problem here is how the billing system and how your customers are going to be signed up. So we'll sell you the infrastructure, but at this point in time, we're not operating chargers. It is something we're thinking about doing, but it's not something you can't just ring us up at the moment and have us install and operate a charger for you. So we sell chargers to people like Steve who operate the network. You know, he signs you up, you pay him the monthly bill, you get a swipe card, all that sort of thing. And there's that's probably the missing piece in the middle at the moment, is who wants to own and operate that network.
Call it out, Doctor.
2 wheels good. Where are the bikes? Where are the bikes?
I intentionally only focus on cars because there are people in this room who know much more about bikes and motorbikes and everything than me. When's your talk? Your next talk?
So no one's going anywhere. We're only having afternoon tea, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Gell, James Kennedy, Charles Gregory and Kristian Handberg. Can we have a big hand? But according to your slide, we are the unconcerned autonomous vehicles. Well, let's see you back in half an hour, shall we?